Hey guys, welcome to BudgetEDH. On this week's episode, we're going to show you how to upgrade the Nature's Vengeance Lord Windgrace deck from Commander 2018. If you're new to our channel and want to continue seeing budget Commander content, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon, and it will notify you of any episodes that we create in the future. Another way that you can support our channel directly is by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/budgetedh. There's a link down below in the description, and for as little as $1 per month, you'll have access to enter into all of our giveaways, including giveaways for decks that we create from deck techs, merch, and sponsored product. Check us out on Patreon. We do have some exciting news. With this week's video, we are going to be giving away the entire deck to one of our lucky listeners. Now, if you want to win, there are 3 ways you can earn an entry into this contest. The first is by being a subscriber of this YouTube channel. Anybody that's currently subscribed will automatically be entered into our contest. The second is by leaving a comment on this video and offering up a piece of feedback for our channel or for this video, a thing that you may like that we're doing or a thing that we could be doing better on our videos. And then the third way is by following us on Twitter at BudgetEDH. If you do all 3 of those, you can earn up to 3 entries into this contest. This contest will run until June 31st, so you have plenty of time to enter. So right now on TCG Player, you can pick up this Commander 2018 Nature's Vengeance deck for $39.45, which is the same as MSRP, which makes it a really good value. If you use the link down below, it helps support our channel and help us make future content. If you go on TCG Player and add in the 25 cards that we use to upgrade this deck, it will only cost you $55.55. And this is using near mint and lightly played cards. Now, if you do go down to moderately played or even heavily played, you can save some money that way too. And if you use the cart optimizer, it will find you the best deal. Lord Windgrace is a planeswalker out of Commander 2018. He costs 2 generic mana, a black, a red, and a green. He has a +2 that says discard a card, then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. And then his -3 is return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then he has a -11, destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents, then create 6 2/2 green Cat Warrior creature tokens with Forest Walk. And Lord Windgrace can be your commander. He starts with 5 loyalty. Now, with Lord Windgrace, we are going to play a Lands Matter theme. In the Commander 2018 deck, the majority of the cards in the deck do lend well to that strategy, and the cards that we'll take out don't work with that strategy. So this deck cost us $39.95 for the pre-con, which is the same as MSRP, even though this came out almost a year ago. So this is a good value. And then with our upgrades, we put in $55.55 in upgrades into the deck using TCG Player's direct program for a total of $95.50 for this deck. So it does come in under our usual $100 budget. On the left, you can see all the cards that we removed. We're not going to go over them in detail, but we will include a list in the description down below. The cards that we took out are cards that don't really lend well to the Lands Matter theme and don't provide a lot of synergy with what we're trying to do with Windgrace. We're adding in cards that optimize the deck a little bit better with what we're trying to do to make Windgrace more powerful. With Lord Windgrace, we are looking to play a Lands Matter style. The best way of doing that is by having landfall in the deck. So landfall says whenever a land enters the battlefield, something happens. So we do have all of the really good landfall cards in the Jund colors. Lord Windgrace also works really well with a mass land destruction theme because you can return your lands back from your graveyard and put them back onto the battlefield in numerous ways in this deck. And there's lots of recursion in this deck. There's lots of ways of getting your lands back to your graveyard and generating additional value, and there's ways of getting your creatures back from your graveyard as well. The strengths of this deck, it does have a lot of ramp, so you are going to ramp out quickly in this deck. It's very resilient to removal because of all the recursion in the deck, and it generates a lot of value with Windgrace's +1 and -3 abilities. The weaknesses of this deck, control decks can be tough to play against. If you get your Windgrace removed from the battlefield multiple times, it is going to be hard to win the game. Any deck that can win the game quickly before turn 10 is going to give you a hard time. You do have a lot of removal and ways to interact with the board, but you don't have a way to win quickly. And then any graveyard hate is going to give you a tough time with Windgrace. So let's kick off this deck tech by going over some of the ramp upgrades that we made to this deck. Now, I'm not going to go over every card that we took out and replaced with one of these new cards. You can see those earlier in the video, and I will also put a link in the description to the cards that we took out of the precon. First up, we have Skyshroud Claim. 3 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 forest cards, put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. This does say forest cards, so you can get non-basic lands as long as they have the forest subtype on them. And then we have Kodama's Reach, 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, and put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle your library. And then we have Wood Elves, 2 and a green for a creature Elf Scout. When Wood Elves enters the battlefield, search your library for a forest card and put that card onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. And then we have Farseek, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. Cycling lands are very powerful in this deck in that you're able to cycle them away to draw a card, and then with Windgrace's abilities and other recursive effects in this deck, you are able to get those lands back from your graveyard and put them onto the battlefield. So we did include both of the Amonkhet cycling lands. The cool thing about these is that they also have basic land types, so you can search these lands out with some of the cards that say grab a forest or a mountain from your deck. Mass land destruction is one of the most powerful things that you can do in this Lord Windgrace deck, and we did include a few cards that lend well to the strategy. So first up, we have Decree of Annihilation. 8 red for a sorcery. Remove all artifacts, creatures, lands, graveyards, and hands from the game. And it does have cycling. 5 red. When you cycle Decree of Annihilation, destroy all lands. One thing to note here is you do want to be using this for the cycling cost. You don't really want to remove everything from the game because with Lord Windgrace, you do have a lot of ways of getting those lands back from your graveyard. Then we have Jocklehops, 4 red for a sorcery. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They can't be regenerated. And then we have Obliterate, 6 red for a sorcery. Obliterate can't be countered. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They can't be regenerated. The cool thing with these cards, they do destroy almost everything, but these cards are older, so they don't destroy planeswalkers. When you play this card and you have your Windgrace on the battlefield, your Windgrace will remain, so you're able to get those lands back from your graveyard with Windgrace's minus ability. And then we have Wildfire, 4 red for a sorcery. Each player sacrifices 4 lands. Wildfire deals 4 damage to each creature. Let's talk about a few of the ways that we're able to get our lands back from the graveyard after we blow up the board. And the first way is with World Shaper. So for 3 and a green, you have a creature Merfolk Shaman that whenever World Shaper attacks, you may put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. And when it dies, put all land cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. So if you do use Obliterate or Jocklehops and your World Shaper dies, it is going to put the trigger on the stack to return all your lands back to the graveyard. So you will get all your lands back after your Obliterate resolves. And then we have Splendid Reclamation. 3 and a green for a sorcery. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This card is crazy in this deck because you're going to be discarding lands with Windgrace's ability to get the extra value. So you're going to have your graveyard filled with lands, and then you can Splendid Reclamation to get all those lands back from your graveyard onto the battlefield. And this card not only gets all those lands back, but can also ramp you. Next up, we have a couple of cards that are combos in that you're able to destroy your opponent's lands. And they are Ramunap Excavator, Ghost Quarter, and Field of Ruin. Ramunap Excavator is 2 and a green for a creature that says, you may play land cards from your graveyard. And Ghost Quarter and Field of Ruin have a similar ability that when you sacrifice them, you can destroy target land or target non-basic land, and then your opponent can go search their library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. With Field of Ruin, you can also search your library as well. If you're playing against a deck that is 3 colors or more, the amount of basic lands in their deck is going to be very thin, and a Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin that you're able to repeat will punish that player because you're going to destroy all of their non-basic lands, and they're not going to be able to search up basic lands to replace them. This is a powerful effect. 2 cards that are staples in Windgrace are Wayward Swordtooth and Courser of Kruphix. So Wayward Swordtooth is 2 and a green for a dinosaur that has Ascend, and you may play an additional land on each of your turns, and Wayward Swordtooth can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing. Being able to play additional lands in this deck is really important because you'll have a lot of lands in your hand, and this is a very powerful effect in this deck. And then we have Courser of Kruphix, 1 green for an enchantment creature. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So this is another powerful effect in this deck, not only for the life gain, but also the ability to play lands off the top of your library. Next up, we have Mina and Den Wildborn. They are 2, a red and a green for a legendary creature, and they have the ability that you may play an additional land on each of your turns, and you can pay a red and a green to return a land you control to its owner's hand to give target creature trample until end of turn. Being able to play additional lands in this deck is extremely powerful, but also the ability of returning lands to your hand provides you some additional value with Lord Windgrace on the battlefield because you can use those lands to discard to draw additional cards. The next card I want to talk about is Ulvenwald Hydra. It's 4 green for a creature with reach. Ulvenwald Hydra's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. When Ulvenwald Hydra enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. This does say you can search for any land card, which is extremely powerful, and an effect that you don't generally see on a lot of Magic cards. Another card I've been very impressed with is Multani Yavimai's Avatar, and he's 4 green for a legendary creature out of Dominaria. He has reach and trample, and Multani Yavimai's Avatar gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land card in your graveyard. And you can pay 1 and a green to return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Return Multani from your graveyard to your hand. So not only does this creature get extremely big in this deck because you'll have a lot of lands on the battlefield and or in your graveyard, he does also give you a way to pick up lands off of the battlefield to put back in your hand, which lends well to Windgrace's strategy of drawing cards and discarding land cards to get additional value. One of the more powerful cards in this deck is the Gitrog Monster. And the Gitrog Monster is 3, a black and a green for a creature with Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog Monster unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. This card is incredibly strong in this deck because you will be putting a lot of lands from your hand or from your deck into your graveyard. This is a combo enabler, though in this deck we did not lean towards the Gitrog Monster's combo because it is stronger in its own deck. We just use the Gitrog Monster as more of a value engine. There are a couple of cards that we included that do work well with the Gitrog Monster, and those are Seismic Assault and Molten Vortex. These are both enchantments that you can discard a land card and they'll deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So you could combo off with Gitrog Monster and deal a lot of damage by discarding some lands and dealing a bunch of damage to your opponents. These do work out well with that strategy. The most powerful card in this deck, in my opinion, is Omnath, Locus of Rage. It's 3 red, green for a legendary creature with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token onto the battlefield. Whenever Omnath, Locus of Rage, or another elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If you have this creature on the battlefield, you could have some pretty crazy turns where you're putting a lot of 5/5 elemental creatures onto the battlefield, which is very powerful. And having the ability that when your elementals die, they deal damage is very strong as well. It does make it to where your opponents are a little hesitant to wipe your board because you can deal them a ton of damage with Omnath's ability. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our video today. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on social media on Facebook, Twitter, or Reddit. We'll see you next time.